What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, the application process opened for Nintendo's Playtest, and it went about how you would expect. But on top of that, we did get some more details around what it could be, and even Nintendo issuing a warning for people who participate, but we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony and, you guessed it, more remasters. These ones, though, appear to be lining up for 2025 and are games that people really would like to see show up on the PS5. And then we also have to talk about, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, Concord. Specifically the fact that it's actually stirring a bit and could be prepping for a relaunch. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with a game that I remember renting way back when on the original PlayStation, and that is Jedi Power Battles. I was not expecting this one to pop up, but Aspire's pretty much been on a crusade to remaster all these different Star Wars games I remember from my childhood just about, but we can see a trailer for it here that was released. This will be going to pretty much all platforms, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, that through Steam on January 23rd at a price of $19.99. The remaster will feature modern controls, 13 newly unlocked characters from the beginning, all levels unlocked, the versus and training modes introduced in later releases of the game, and two-player couch cooperative play. That is awesome to see, as if you played this game, it was an interesting one, I guess. It's kind of arcadey. I mean, the camera is sort of zoomed out a bit, and your character's a little smaller, and you and, at this point, a friend, again, couch co-op, can run around just basically smashing droids and stuff. It's based on, as you figure with the title, Episode 1. This was back in like the prequel days, and we were starting to get those Star Wars games to go alongside of the movies, and it was an interesting time, I will say that, in pop culture and in video games. This will definitely be a blast from the past coming back next year, like 25 years later or something. Also, we got a bit of an update for that Splinter Cell remake, this coming from Insider Gaming, we can see over on their website, where they say Insider Gaming has learned that the game is being developed under the codename North. In addition to the codename, sources have confirmed the game is being built in the Snowdrop engine. Previous Splinter Cell games used Unreal Engine 2 and 2.5. To go a bit further here, they do mention a potential release date of 2026, although it's not necessarily set in stone. As we know, with release schedules internally, they can change at any time. But really looking at this, there's not too much new information. We already had been told that it was being developed in the Snowdrop engine. The code name is kind of interesting, and even trying to line it up for 2026. Believe it or not, the big news here out of this report is that it wasn't canceled. And I didn't think they would go off and cancel it, because Splinter Cell is something that I think could use a bit of a revival here with the remake. One, because it would be really cool to see that video game franchise become at least somewhat popular again. And two, it would also work outside of just video games, as we see all these companies pushing for really some sort of entry into the big screen or TV series, with all these subscription video on demand services throwing money everywhere. It seems like Splinter Cell lines up perfectly for it, but still going to be a few more years before we see that one come out. Oh, and we did get pricing information for Red Dead Redemption on the PC, which is over on their website here. Coming in at a price of, you guessed it, $49.99. I say you guessed it because that was also the price that we saw for the remaster when they introduced that on the different systems, specifically the PlayStation and the Switch. And I saw some people go, whoa, that is quite expensive. And I mean, yes, it's an older game, I get it. It is that situation of Rockstar and Take-Two going, look, you've wanted it this whole time, here it is. And then they call their shot with a $50 price tag. It's like, hey, you said you wanted it, here it is, $50. That's just kind of where they are with it. And look, it's a game that will go on sale, I have to assume, as we've seen Red Dead Redemption 2 get fairly cheap over time through different Steam sales. I'm sure the remaster will undergo that same process to where it'll be 50% off by next year at some time. So I will say the features and all the different graphical options they've introduced are very enticing, but if you don't want to spend $50, you probably just have to wait a bit on that one. Otherwise, maybe it'll have a discount during that Steam spring sale that we expect every year. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with that mystery playtest that Nintendo had revealed the other day, and now they did open the application process, which I didn't get in, and it's very strange because I was waiting for it to go live. I was sitting there refreshing the page so the button was highlighted, and that was exactly at the 11 a.m. Eastern time or so. And as soon as I clicked it, it was filled immediately. And there's supposed to be like 10,000 or so spots. So Nintendo, I don't know if they underestimated it because they left the application process to be several days. I mean, it was done in less than 2 minutes or so. But hey, if you got in, congratulations, because it does seem like things are getting a bit interesting for this one. There is a leading theory now that I'll discuss here in a moment, but let's go over some of the new details we have for it. This was shared by Oatmeal Dome, who rounded up some of this info as we saw this from like Page Source and stuff over on the website. They say, if you're accepted to the Playtest program, Nintendo will give you an eShop download code for special software around October 21st. You will need 2.2 gigabytes of free space. Nintendo also recommends using TV mode and a wired connection during the test. To go a bit further, later on in the day, we did have this that was shared, saying players will not be allowed to talk about the contents of the playtest. You must accept an NDA before the software can be downloaded. Now, some people pointed this out. Doesn't appear to be an NDA that's actually signed necessarily. It just seems, as you can see with Nintendo under the important section, just saying, we request that you do not discuss or disclose content from either the Nintendo Switch Online playtest program, test software, or website with others. You also can't pass your download code for the Switch Online playtest to someone else, as it appears like it's going to be linked specifically to your account, as Nintendo did request that you have an expansion pack account ready to go when you went through the application process. But the thing with this is Nintendo's done this before where they've said, don't share this. And if you remember, it was during the Switch Sports beta, I believe. And they're like, look, don't post anything about this online. People still did. And Nintendo didn't necessarily act on it like, oh, we're going to go around and just copyright strike and take down accounts everywhere. It was kind of just, look, it might be kind of rough as we're trying to work out the online stuff here. And we don't necessarily want that advertised everywhere because it's not going to be representative of the final product. I assume that's the similar situation here. But now everyone's wondering, what exactly is this thing? Because they are being somewhat coy about it, very vague when it comes to the sign-up process, and we're mostly learning about the 2.2 gigabytes, for example, just from Page Source and some behind-the-scenes thing people are able to see. And, well, the leading theory appears to be something to do with streaming games. And some are wondering if this is them looking at streaming GameCube and Wii titles specifically, although it could really be anything. And it also now, with 2.2 gigabytes, could maybe be related to a game that isn't necessarily announced at this time. It could be announced before this playtest because the playtest isn't going to happen until the end of this month and could happen at any time in the next week or two. And what you're seeing here is them testing out maybe something that requires a ton of people to connect at once. A battle royale did go through my mind of like Nintendo's spin on it. But the reason people are looking at this as maybe game streaming is Nintendo asking you to play in TV mode and play with a wired connection would want them to collect information with the best possible scenario when it comes to your connection, which that's what you'd want to do for game streaming. I do see some people wonder, why GameCube, why Wii? Wouldn't that just be something you would download? And sure, you could absolutely download GameCube titles that would probably be anywhere from 1 to 2 gigabytes, or Wii titles that we know can be upwards of like 4 gigabytes, sometimes more. But the thing with Nintendo and what they've been trying to do is make it so it's as seamless and as easy to start up as possible for some of the games on NSO, where they are smaller file sizes. GameCube and Wii are larger, would take longer, and because these are more spur-of-the-moment kind of announcements and releases, wouldn't necessarily be, okay, you're jumping in immediately, unless you're able to cloud stream it and maybe even allow you to download while it's cloud streaming. Also, when it comes to Nintendo asking people not to share information around this, I mean, good luck. It's just, there's thousands of people who are going to be playing this, and you don't really think anyone's going to just start snapping pictures or just openly talking about it or posting video. Of course they will. It's just, I feel like Nintendo just asking politely, don't put that stuff out there, but it'll get out there. Let's be real. So I wouldn't be shocked if you see a flood of information around that time just going around, and I'll be curious to see if Nintendo reacts to it. Something tells me it'll be more in line with what they did with Nintendo with the Switch Sports stuff, where they didn't really, but it was, I'm sure, annoying them the entire time. I'm just curious if we get some kind of announcement ahead of this playtest where at least they won't be breaking some sort of agreement around an unannounced game or even feature set for NSO. Next up, let's talk about Sony and, of course, remasters, which is basically the running theme right now, the running joke that Sony has done nothing but remasters. Of course, they've done plenty of other stuff so far this generation, but there is a set of games that people have been asking if it could be on the PlayStation 5 ways other than streaming. And that's actually God of War, which we can see this was posted up over on Twitter X, and it's from an account that has put information out there multiple times now that ended up being correct. So that's one of the reasons why this has circulated so much. I mean, you can see it has currently 420 some odd thousand views on Twitter, but this is from Lunatic saying, yes, the rumors are true. God of War Greek Saga Remastered, not the actual title, is in the works at Santa Monica Studios and Nix's software. Nix is, of course, doing a lot of the remaster work, especially on PC. The development is finished, and they are just waiting for an announcement release, releasing in 2025 with an announcement December through March at some point. Now, they go on to say, when I say Greek Saga, I mean all Greek Saga, including 1 through 3, PSP games, and Ascension, which would be, that'd be quite the package right there. But they put all those out there and it's $70. That's the sticking point for me, as I don't necessarily see Sony going that route, but I could see them maybe releasing it and broken up into 2 different versions or something, or maybe they just do all of them and release them one at a time or something. It's just, it seems odd that that is the way they would go. One big package, when we've seen what they've done with something like Uncharted 4, for example, that and the Lost Legacy game. So I am curious about how Sony would at least introduce these and package them, but it actually lines up with data that technically leaked out through the Insomniac hack that happened. So I don't necessarily know if I can show you the slide, but basically the data that they had gathered showed that really one of the most played games through streaming were actually the older God of War titles from what they were being played on the PS3, as we have like the collection and stuff there that had the handheld games, and then also like 1 and 2, and even God of War 3, which is available through PS4 backwards compatibility. Yeah, they're very popular games. So I actually think it would be awesome to have those brought up to the PS5, because it does sound weird, but then you hear how old something like God of War 2 is from, what, 2007, which, again, it sounds crazy, but yeah, that was like 18 years ago almost. So, I mean, that makes a ton of sense for a remaster to have that brought up. And I would definitely pick it up if they said, hey, here are all these God of War games from that Greek saga. We're throwing it into one package, 1 or 2 Blu-ray discs, and you're off and running. Yeah, sign me up day one. But let me know if that's actually something you'd be interested in. We'll even say at the price of $70, because that was the poll that I actually ran yesterday, and we'll see how that one turned out. Next up, let's talk about Concord, which apparently is stirring a bit in the grave right now, which this was pointed out, I saw, by Insider Gaming once again, which we can see over on their website. They say over the last few weeks, there have been multiple daily updates to the game on Steam. Since October 6th, the game has seen 20 updates on Steam by various users, such as PM Test. So 20 updates in 4 days? That's quite a few. And they also talk about some of the lines here in the change list. You can see they say it's unknown what the updates are exactly, but there are rumors that the game could be looking to re-release as a free-to-play title. And I'm sure now people will really be going through these, trying to decipher exactly what's happening, but you know, I mean, at this point, the rumors around the budget, to me, anything above a couple $100 million is too much for Concord, and it seems like it could be well above that even. Sony has to be sitting there trying to figure out what they can salvage from this and at least take another shot at it. My only thing is, even if you made it free to play, I think the name itself is too tainted to just put out there and be like, hey, it's Concord, try it out. It's like, well, why would I try that? If it was free to play, which, remember, they had an open beta and people still didn't play it, which that's basically giving you an idea as to what free to play would look like, and it wasn't great. So I'm curious what these Steam updates would be for otherwise, outside of them just playing around with maybe balancing and seeing what they can do, maybe as an internal pitch as to, hey, there might be something we can get out of this Concord game that we released that's now really back in the hopper. How can we rearrange it? How can we reorganize it to put it out there as a free-to-play game and try from there, I guess? It's just, the game was never really developed with free-to-play monetization strategies in place, so how do you even go back to the drawing board and do that in time to where it still seems somewhat relevant? My thing is, though, when you introduce it with that Concord name, it's getting buried day one anyway by the internet, so you have to think outside the box for this one, and I don't know if a name change is necessarily going to do much else once people realize, oh, this is still the Concord game we played, you know, like a month or two ago. It's just now free to play. I guess maybe you'd have some people who are just interested, like, yeah, why not? I heard so much about this, let's try it. Maybe that's what they're counting on, but there's just a lot they'd have to figure out, and I think this is a good idea to go away for longer than a couple of months, maybe a year or two, and have them really spend substantial time reworking it. Is it worth it, though, with Firewalk and how much they cost? That's the balancing act Sony needs to figure out right now. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Microsoft and some plans they have around that Xbox application, especially with everything happening with Google, where basically their own OS for phones and Android is being broken open with the Play Store, and be able to make purchases outside of that, not having to go through the monetization cut that Google takes. This just allows them more freedom to do things like you can see here. This from Sarah Bond, who says the court's ruling to open up Google's mobile store in the US will allow more choice and flexibility. Our mission is to allow more players to play on more devices, so we are thrilled to share that starting in November, players will be able to play and purchase Xbox games directly from the Xbox app on Android. So this has led to some confusion. I will admit it's not necessarily as straightforward as I would like them to be with this, but my assumption is that in November, that Xbox application you have on Android specifically, because they're still going back and forth with the iOS stuff with Apple, who is, of course, being very reluctant when it comes to opening up the marketplace really there on iPhones and iPads. But in this case, for the Xbox app on Android, what I assume is happening, you go in there on the storefront, you buy it through the Xbox app without having to go to Google and, again, do the cut there, and even abide by some of their restrictions with this thing, and then you can launch it as a streaming game on your phone, or set it up to then download on your Xbox right from there. So there is I'd say a pretty large level of convenience immediately. It's like, oh, you buy it on your phone and it can immediately start streaming. Now, I will say xCloud, I think still needs quite a bit of work. It's weird to me currently that Sony on their PlayStation 5 has a better streaming service than Microsoft has on xCloud or through the Xbox. It's just a clearer picture, the latency's less, and I'm sure there are technically less people using it because it is completely walled off to just the PlayStation 5 at this time. But still, I'd like to see Microsoft make more of an effort and more advancements on xCloud. And maybe this is something they were waiting for to get to that point, because they would open it up to more people, specifically on mobile phones. And that's something they've been trying to do for quite a while. So then they would have a large customer base overnight going through the Xbox app on phones. Here's the only thing now, they need to convince people that it is a viable way to play games, and that has also been something that they've kind of struggled with when it comes to touchscreen controls. Basically, you need a controller and you need a clip or an attachment for it to be decent. I guess you could use touch controls for RPGs or slower moving games, but good luck playing something like Call of Duty with the touchscreen on your phone. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, would you be interested in a God of War collection with the PlayStation 3 games remastered for PS5? 65% say yes, 35% say no. And this is the thing, there's been this debate back and forth as to, do you like kind of like the Greek saga or the Norse mythology saga? And that it is tough. I will say there's more games on the Greek saga side as opposed to the newer, like God of War 2018, God of War Ragnarok, and even technically Valhalla, that was the addition or the expansion for God of War Ragnarok. I will admit, I'm kind of torn. Nostalgia tells me go with God of War 1 through 3, and then yes, the PSP games, although I spent more time, I would say, on the console side of things, but I'm not going to diminish like Ghost of Sparta and stuff. Those were very, very impressive games on the PSP, and I would certainly go back and revisit these games on the PlayStation 5, even if it's a basic or standard enough remaster, although they could obviously work up things like textures and have the frame rate be even higher than what they were on like the PS2 and stuff. That's kind of what I'm thinking it would be, right? Not a massive remake or anything. And to me, that's still enough if there is that value of, hey, here's a bunch of games from the PS2, the PS3, and the PSP era, all in one shot. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Dracovania, says, we all theorizing cool new features for the mystery project. Nintendo, welcome to the official Nintendo nutrition camp. You can never put it past Nintendo, never count them out to do something incredibly weird and out of left field. They did it with the alarm clock. Alarmo, no one saw that coming. Well, okay, we were kind of playing around and guessing about things like an alarm clock, but like really no one thought we were going to wake up one day and Nintendo legitimately announce a way to wake up the next day with an alarm clock. We were all kind of on the edge of our seats for the Switch 2, and it hasn't happened there. And you're right, there is the possibility that this is just something weird and it's just underwhelming for everything people are asking for now, not limited to GameCube and Wii titles being something you can then just stream immediately through an app at the end of this month. So again, expectations should be somewhat in check for this one, but the way Nintendo's going about this, it does seem very unorthodox for them. So obviously, we're going to expect something very strange, but also pretty exciting. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll have it up here in a card for you. Or maybe you wanted to see a different take on like the samurai style games. I checked one out on the Switch in a video, and I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.